Despite the weaker areas that was mentioned in part one, the Waco PD has a lot going for it. The Facebook Twitter posts often reflect the positive side of police work, including pictures of Waco PD officers at community events, or just selfies with citizens whose smiles indicate their appreciation for the officers and their institution. It doesn't take a statistical genius to survey the Waco PD Facebook page to see that the community and various stakeholders support their police department. Recently, the Waco Police Department made 3 newsworthy arrests. One was an alleged domestic assailant, a case where the SWAT team had been deployed. Another arrest was presented on the page as a sort of comedy of errors, where an individual tried to pick up a package of marijuana from Federal Express. And the big arrest was a Waco PD officer arrested for alleged police brutality. During the week of August 14th to 18th, the time frame of these arrests, the Waco PD Facebook page experienced a huge bump in likes. The community's support for the PD is a great opportunity for this organization to excel in the communication realm. But hold on. When one scrolls through the Waco Police Department page, you can easily notice those embarrassing mugshots that have a lingering ability of disgrace posted next to every other major arrest that week that Swanton chose to post on the page. But the Waco PD officer's mugshot is missing. In a comment later, Swanton claims that the story was posted before a mugshot was available. A gentleman further comments that it is never too late to update a Facebook post. A week later, the mugshot was still not up, so the previously mentioned gentleman took it upon himself to post the pic. Some comments say, "Thanks for the transparency." Was this really transparency? Or was it merely an appearance of an open system, when in fact the system is biased towards a certain group that is exempt from mugshot publication? A study by one of the Waco community's larger tenants, Baylor University, shows a very high degree of satisfaction with the police department within the white community. However, the elephant in the room is the drastic difference in satisfaction when race is considered. Does this study show a bias in the Waco Police Department's operations? It's hard to not take meaning from this graphic, especially when one considers the translation of the graphic in words in the first pages of the document. The paragraph reads, Part 3, Community Relations. 49% of residents felt that the police always treated minorities with equal respect compared to other groups. Of that 49%, 66 were white, 19% were Hispanic, and 8% were black. According to Area Vibes, the African American population makeup should be about 20%. So this means that less than half of the African Americans in Waco feel they are treated fairly. Sheriff David Clark has been an outspoken opponent of any suggestion that police officers treat African Americans differently than other races. He made this comment during a CNN interview with Don Lemon, July 17, 2016.
3 officers dead, 3 wounded in Baton Rouge. A really tough day for Baton Rouge and for the country, really. Here to talk about how to keep our police safe is Sheriff David Clark of Milwaukee County, Wisconsin. He is going to be speaking at the Republican convention tomorrow night. Sheriff, thank you very much for that. To welcome a conversation with you. I don't disagree with you about there's a narrative across the country that could be harming police officers, but we don't know right now, as someone who's in law enforcement, if that was the actual cause of it. Go ahead.
Let me ask you this. Do we know that generally the American law enforcement officers are racist? Do we know this?
Go on.
I ask a question.
Do I know American general law enforcement are
Yeah.
racist? I don't think anyone is accusing. If you're insinuating that people are accusing or saying that law enforcement across this country as a whole are racist, then your assumption is wrong.
First of all, this whole anti-police rhetoric is based on a lie. There is no data, and you know this. There is no data, there is no research that proves any of that nonsense.
Clark went on to clarify that he was stating that he believed that there is no data to support claims that African Americans are treated differently than white Americans by police. Then Clark and Lemon debated for several minutes the merits of various studies, Harvard, Washington Post, etc., and that some claim these prove aggressive behavior against African Americans by police, while others refute all of these findings. Of course, the Baylor study does not prove racism exists in the Waco Police Department, but however, it does demonstrate that over half of the African Americans in Waco feel they are not treated fairly. On August 10th, Sequence Media Group filed this report on a Justice Department probe into the Baltimore Police Department.
The long-awaited findings of a Justice Department probe into the Baltimore Police Department were released today, painting an awful picture of routine violations of constitutional rights of residents, as reported by the Baltimore Sun. Launched after the Freddie Gray death in April 2015, the 163-page report found that the practices of the Baltimore police, quote, perpetuate and fuel a multitude of issues rooted in poverty and race, focusing law enforcement actions on low-income minority communities. Black residents of Baltimore were 37% more likely to be searched and 23% more likely to be searched during vehicle stops, although officers found contraband twice as often when searching white residents during vehicle stops and 50% more during pedestrian stops. The report even detailed 7 black men who were stopped more than 30 times each since 2010.
Proving to many that racism exists in police forces will be a challenge for many years to come. But if a DOJ report suggests that race is a relevant factor in Baltimore, it stands to reason that it could also be a factor elsewhere in the United States. And even if all this research is dead wrong, misinterpreted, or whatever, there's still a perception that there are some issues about fair treatment from police officers across the country. And on that line of thinking, there's definitely a perception that many of those 200 or so wearing motorcycle gear that afternoon in Waco were singled out because of the way they dress, the way they look, and the choice of a two-wheeled motorized conveyance, and also just because they were in the vicinity of a very serious crime. So what exists within all of this complicated mess of information are the threats faced by the Waco PD from a SWOT analysis. These threats are of the form of negative perceptions, a national news and media microscope, and the litigation that surrounds these things, which will be explored in Part 3. But a big question remains. How long will Waco PD's superficial, opinionated, editorialized communication method last?